So let's go ahead and get started. Again, I'm Bill Booth, joined by Jeremy Hawk, and we're here to talk about AP automation and what it's all about. Jeremy, if you would go to the next slide. The solution that we're going to be showing you today is called Beanworks AP, and we're going to talk generally about AP automation, but also specifically we're going to show you this product. Beanworks is located in Vancouver. They started in 2008. They've got lots of customers, thousands of users. Importantly, I think for us, all of us in the club industry, they have 16 private club customers. It is a hosted solution. A little bit about our company. We are Beanworks for clubs, and we're the exclusive provider of Beanworks, the AP automation from Beanworks for North America. We started our company in March of 2016 and spent most of 2016 just getting up to speed on Beanworks, learning the ins and outs of the product, and familiarizing ourselves in the industry with it. And then in 2017, we had a lot of clubs join on, and they're very happy with the solution. We currently have 16. We just added our 16th club this month in January. Jeremy Hawk has been in the industry for over 15 years, doing a lot of private club software consulting. I've been around almost 30 doing club technology consulting. And the reason we got involved in this is because we had our clients. Between us, we have about 750 different club clients that we've worked with over the years, and many of them had asked about AP automation and paperless workflow, looking for a solution that was cost-effective, that was powerful, but easy to use. And we had seen a number of solutions with some of our clients that they didn't like. So mostly because they were either very expensive and or very complicated to use. And complicated not so much for the accounting staff, but for the various departments to use in their coding and authorizations and those kinds of things and authority channels. So we started looking around at what was available and found Beanworks to be a very powerful yet easy-to-use solution. It was already in a couple of private clubs when we discovered it, and we worked out a deal with them to be able to represent them in North America. So let's talk a little bit about how things get started with AP automation. This is how things work with Beanworks, and it's how it works with most solutions that are receiving invoices electronically and have a staff of people somewhere entering data. That's not always the case. There are products that you can buy that you can install on your computer yourself and scan everything yourself and do it all, but most of the clients that we've worked with have not wanted to do that. They want to make things easier instead of harder. So let's assume that you've purchased an AP automation solution. The first thing that happens is, and this is what we do, is we extract your data from your accounting system, your GL accounts, your department codes, your vendor information, and that information is uploaded into the Beanworks AP automation solution either as needed, as you want to, or on a nightly basis, however you want to do it. We also set up your users who are going to need access to Beanworks. That's not only the accounting folks, but individuals in every department of the club that are going to be approving invoices and coding invoices and those kinds of things. And then we also assist you to contact your vendors and request electronic invoices. And the goal here is to get to about 80%. That's about as good as it's going to get. Maybe 85% of your invoices coming in can come in electronically. You'll see a little bit later specifics on formats of invoices and how that works. You still have the ability to scan the remaining 15 or 20% and scan them right into the system very easily. When we talk about we help you do this, Beanworks is a very strong organization that does a great job in implementing the product and supporting the product. And they know the club industry now because we've done 16 of these with them. We also were very active, Jeremy and I, in the implementation process. We're on the training calls and the setup calls with you because we've got a lot of club experience, and so we're able to chime in when necessary and help make, cross a few bridges and a few questions that people have that are very club specific. We also are always available to our clients for any questions they have along the way. We get very few questions because Beanworks does such a great job of support that once the thing gets up and running, we check back with everybody. How's it going? And invariably, it's great. We love it. Nothing to report, and that's what we love to hear. But we're involved throughout and are always available to help out or answer any questions that our clients might have. So once you go live, once you have loaded up your data and you've got your users in and your approval channels in and you've got all that stuff done, here's how things work. Vendors send their invoices to you via email, and they're electronically. So you would have an email address that would say something like invoices at, and your club, abccountryclub.com. Those invoices are going to come into your email system, and you'll be able to keep a copy and also be forwarded to the data entry team in Vancouver. These invoices are not scanned with OCR devices. We have not found that to be effective. Very high percentage of misscans and information that doesn't come through properly. So there is a large team of data entry folks in Vancouver that will take that invoice information and they will code let's say the header information of the invoice, the vendor ID, the invoice date, the due date, the amount due, the department, those kinds of things. You'll see in a minute, this is kind of an overview that I'm doing from a high level. Jeremy's going to jump into the software and we'll show you exactly how this works. But that's the first step. Those invoices are coming in electronically, and the cutoff, I think, is 6 p.m. local time. So anything that arrives email-wise up to 6 p.m. local time is going to go to Vancouver and would be in your AP person's inbox the next morning when they come in. So those invoices are brought into the Beanworks inbox to what we call the traffic cop, that AP person or accounting person who's going to, in essence, be the person now who gets the invoices and either opens the mail or opens the emails and then routes them out through putting them in the right mail slot or putting them in an envelope, however you might get that information out to the various departments. But those invoices are keyed in by Beanworks. They show up in the inbox of the AP staff, and then that staff can either snag invoices and say, hey, I'm going to pay this myself. It doesn't need to go out to another department, or forward them off to the proper staff member. And then from there, the invoices are automatically routed based on the approval channel that's been set up. So based on, let's say, the amount, anything over X dollars needs to go to this person. Anything that's a particular GL account number needs to go through this routing. Anything that's a capital project needs to go through a different approval channel. Anything with a particular job code, if you're using job codes, has to go a certain shit through this person, then that person, and this person, whatever. So you have a lot of options for how these things flow through the system and how they go through the various approval steps. Following approval, once the invoice is approved, or groups of invoices are approved, then they are uploaded into your AP system. And whether that is Jonas or Northstar or Club Essential or IBS or whatever you have, that upload happens electronically, and then you process and pay the invoices within your accounts payable accounting system. So that's the system of record. Everything that happens in that system happens as it does now, and then the paid invoice information is uploaded back into Beanworks. So when you go into Beanworks, you're really replacing those file cabinets that you have now. You have the original invoice images of pictures of all the invoices. You also have any other documents that you may have scanned, like receiving documents, purchase orders, whatever you might have pulled in. You have all the coding information from whoever did the coding. You have the approval channel, how it was approved, who approved it, when, and then you have the payment information coming back from your accounting system. So in essence, Beanworks becomes that file cabinet for you to do your research. And you're going to see some very cool things here in a couple minutes about how to make that really nice and easy. We think probably the best part of this whole thing is that you always know where the invoices are. You can't lose an invoice, and you know who's sitting on invoices. You know, you are the folks that have to deal with this. You're dealing with it right now. It's the end of the month, so I'm sure you're chasing invoices, and you know, various individuals are always dragging their feet and getting things done. Oh, I sent the invoice back to you. It's already coded. No, I didn't get it, but whatever. There's no hiding here because everything's electronic. So everybody knows that it's electronic, and that really improves the process, because when people know that you know where the invoice is, they don't bother trying to hide anything. They just code it and get it off to you. So what we find with our clients that are using the solution is that the process at month end is much less of a hassle because there's no hiding. Also, you'll never lose an invoice and potentially pay a late fee or a penalty because the invoice didn't, you know, somebody held on to it, you didn't know about it, they submitted it a month late, now you got to pay, you know, a late fee. That should never happen because you're going to know where those invoices are all the time. So let's keep going. I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy, and Jeremy, you're off and running.
Okay, thanks, Bill, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. We're going to get into the software in just a moment, but we'll answer a couple of quick questions that always come up before we get into it. One is, this is kind of a brief review of what Bill went over, but it's kind of the history of the invoice from beginning to end. And if you look up in the top, purchase orders. So not every club uses purchase orders, but a lot of clubs do want to use them. One of the big advantages of using Beanworks is it comes included with a purchase order system. And you can use that for your inventory items and non-inventory items. And that can be used at every department in the club. And we're going to look at all of the workflow today surrounding invoices, but just keep in the back of your mind, the same workflow we're going to look at also can apply to purchase orders. So one way or the other, the invoices arrive at the club, either email, regular mail, or some invoices will always be delivered to the club, and we'll show you how to handle those. The next step is the start of the workflow. So the workflow starts in Beanworks, and I really want you to think of Beanworks not as a document storage program, but it's really a workflow system. And the invoices know where to go based off of all of the rules and settings that we set up during the training. After the invoices come in, they're coded via the department managers or whomever does the coding at your club. Or if you're using purchase orders, it can be set up to accept the coding from the original purchase order, which is pretty neat. Again, it then uploads via file upload to whatever accounting system you have. And then they sit in that accounting system for payment, whether you're paying by checks, third-party printed checks, virtual credit cards. Any way you're paying your invoices, that information eventually gets back to Beanworks. So some of the questions we get are the most common invoice formats that Beanworks accepts. 99% of the time we see invoices come in as PDF documents, but it can accept a TIFF or a JPEG if that's what your vendor can supply. We'll always have vendors that won't send email or invoices via email, or they'll just drop them off with the food or the bagels or the bread. And the way we handle that is you can simply upload those from a scanner at your club. You can either set your scanner to automatically forward the email to your invoice's email address, or you can upload it as a PDF right into Beanworks and start the workflow. And Bill mentioned the transparency. One of the best features of any AP automation system is the tracking of the invoices. So everyone on this call would end up being a system administrator, and you would get an email like this on a regular basis showing who has invoices and who's sitting on them. And individually, department managers could get a summary that looks like this, or a detailed email for every invoice. So if they don't get invoices often, sometimes a detail is the way to go. But if they do get a lot of invoices, the way it works is they would sign into their computer every day or every couple of days and work through their invoices, just like they would pick them up in the accounting office. So we're going to walk through a very simple club today. And most importantly, we have an AP clerk. Her name in this setup is Kathy. We have a CFO, a couple of department managers, and a GM. So we have a very typical club setup for you to see today. So this is your first shot of Beanworks, or your first look at Beanworks. And the reason we show this line in screen is just to remind you that it is 100% hosted in the cloud. So there's no software for you to install at the club. And because it's cloud-based, you can do all this work on any computer, on a tablet, and we even have an iPhone app now where you can approve or deny invoices right from your phone, which is pretty neat, and we'll show you a picture of that towards the end of the session. So as the system administrators, every time you log in, you can also see what's called the Bean board, which is very neat. It will tell you how quickly different department managers or staff are processing invoices. So you'll have that information every time you log in if you want it. If you choose to use a purchase orders in Beanworks, you would be able to see a screen like this, again, showing all of the different POs that are either in progress for approval or fully committed and waiting for the goods or services or the invoice to come in. So we'll spend most of our time not on talking about POs, but talking about invoices. So Kathy's our AP clerk. This is what she goes through on a typical day. And I really like to equate it to what you're doing with the paper and how it automates using Beanworks. So the equivalent of opening the mail in the morning is Kathy would come in and she would see any invoices that came in overnight. So the overnight coding team, in essence, opened your mail and look through your invoices. So she'll see all the invoices that came in. So she'll click on the very first one and work on it. And what you see on the left-hand side is the invoice detail, the header information. This is what the overnight service does for you. They pick off the supplier name, the invoice number, the date, the due date, and the dollar amount. And then it's up to us at the club to take care of the general ledger coding, whether it's a GL, department, project, any of those. And we'll talk about those in just a moment. So you have an image of the invoice that came through the email. And Kathy's job, or the AP clerk's job, really changes from a data entry person to what we call the traffic cop. So she'll assign this invoice for a golf course supply to Ben. He's our superintendent. And this one happens to be a U.S. food, so she'll assign that one to Michelle. She's our food and beverage manager. So what Kathy has done now is she's gone through and assigned all 4 of those invoices out to the various departments. So it would be the equivalent of opening the mail and putting the invoices into the correct mailbox. So all the invoices are assigned. We're going to log in now as Ben. He's our superintendent, and if you remember, one invoice was assigned to Ben. So he would log in, and he would see any invoices that require his attention. Again, he would look at the first invoice. He'd be able to pull it up. He can zoom in. He can zoom out to see whatever he needs. And then at the bottom is where we can do all of the coding. And again, we bring your information out of your accounting system. So in this case, it's Green's maintenance. He has a department number. There's a place to add additional information. And then he clicks Submit. And the Submit here is really the heart of Beanworks. So this invoice knows where to go based off of any feature on the invoice. So if it's over a certain dollar amount, it can go to one person. If it's a certain GL number, it can go to another manager. So the workflow is really the heart of this system. And controllers love it because we can say anything coded to a capital, regardless of the value, comes through the CFO or controller's desk. And there's no end of options when you get into that level of detail. So that invoice is off and going where it needs to go. We'll actually see it later. But Michelle, the food and beverage manager, is logging in now. So she sees her 2 invoices that were assigned to her. She clicks on the first one. She can double check the header information on the right. And we have this great feature up in the top right called Smart Code. And it's just like your accounting systems where you can have a default GL account for certain vendors. We can have regular GL accounts for each vendor by user. So each time, after the first time Michelle codes a Cheney Brothers invoice, all she'd have to do is hit Smart Code, and the software will bring down the GL department and any descriptions. And of course, she can override that if need be. But when the invoices go to the same place every time, that makes a tremendous difference. So again, she would submit that off for approval. And then we'll look at a new invoice. This is a U.S. Foods invoice. And this one needs to be distributed up to multiple GL accounts. Just like you can in any of your accounting systems, we can do the first account, distribute the amount we need to that GL, which leaves a remaining balance. And just like all the accounting systems, you just continue to distribute this by adding as many lines as you want, and until, of course, the invoice nets to 0. Once that's done, you can submit that invoice off for approval. And there's only 2 lines shown here, but we can have as many lines as you need so that it uploads properly into your accounting system. So that's the day-to-day operation regarding invoices and how your department managers use Beanworks. Alan is our CFO, so he either got an email or was in the habit of checking Beanworks to see if he needed to take care of anything. And his tab is an approval tab, meaning there's an invoice that requires his approval. So this happens to be that golf course supply that was routed through Ben because it was over Ben's threshold for approval. So Alan, the CFO, would see the history of the invoice. He can see any notes that were added to the invoice. And he has the ability down at the bottom to either approve or reject the invoice. And this is what you can now do on your smartphone, is approve or reject invoices, which is really neat, and it's fun the first few times you do it. So let's assume he approves the invoice. We would now have a permanent record of what that looks like. So when the invoice came in, when the department manager approved it, and then when the controller or CFO approved it. And here's just a little picture of what the app looks like. The far left is the sign-in screen. The middle screen is the approve or reject an invoice. And the far right are just all of the invoices on my iPhone that I need to approve or deny. And Bill and I were recently at a trade show, and one of our Beanworks clubs was literally at dinner approving and denying invoices from his phone. So it was pretty neat to see. So that's the day-to-day operation on the department side. So now our friend Kathy, remember she's our AP clerk, she needs to get those invoices that are fully approved out of Beanworks and into the accounting system. So she'll log in, and you notice her tab says export. So in the green A that you see on the far left, those are fully approved invoices that have met all the requirements of the workflow, so they're ready to go into your accounting system. So she'll queue up the invoices she wants to export, and this arrow indicates there's a posting date. So just like your accounting system has a batch date or a posting date, Beanworks has that as well. So right now it's January, but tomorrow we still may have January expenses. So it's very easy to backdate invoices into the correct accounting period. So we export files. All the accounting systems we work with at the moment in the club world are via file, import, export, and import. So what Beanworks is doing is creating two items for you. One is a text file that will get uploaded to your accounting system. And the second is a report, just in case you want to double check that in your batch report in your accounting system. And then Kathy would see that her exports are clear, and there's nothing left to bring over to the accounting system. Common question we get is, how often should I bring it over to my accounting system? And it really depends how often you want it to be updated. We have a couple clubs that do it once or twice a day, and we have one club that does it at the end of the week. So as often as you want your general ledger to be updated is the correct answer to that question. So you would get a report, and those invoices now sit in your accounting system waiting to be paid. So like Bill said, your accounting system is still your system of record. Eventually those three checks get paid, or those three invoices get paid, and we send the check numbers or references back to Beanworks. And I'll show you in a moment why we do that. But here's our check register. So we have check number 2843, 44, and 45. It's a very simple example. And the reason we send that information back to Beanworks is, imagine today, I'm sure not far from where you're sitting now, you have stacks of checks, paper clipped or stapled to invoices. Once you come over to Beanworks or any other AP automation system, you have checks, but you don't have copies of the invoices behind that for the check signer. So what the check signer ends up using is a Beanworks report. And that report looks like this. If you notice, we have here the three check numbers that were on the report, 843, 844, and 845. So what your check signer gets is a PDF report, and it has those three checks, but behind it, they can click on the hyperlink or just scroll through the PDF, and they'll have copies of the invoices along with the GL coding and any notes and the history of the invoice, and that should be enough for them to sign the checks. So instead of sifting through checks with invoices, the check signer would scroll through this PDF. Certainly they could print it out, but that defeats the purpose a little bit. And we also have clubs where they'll email the check signer the report the night before, so that way when they come to the club, they can already be prepared with questions. So that's the check signing process. It's probably one of the biggest things that changes when you go over to any AP automation system. A couple of extra slides here that show the benefits of any system. Remember, Bill mentioned you really will be able to get rid of those file cabinets in due time because everything will be stored here in Beanworks. And if you just wanted to quickly look for all your Staples invoices, rather than going to the file cabinet, you'd simply type in where it says quick search, where the red arrow is, and you'll get all of your Staples invoices. And this could be for any date range, any vendor, or any department manager, any GL account. And the best part of any system is not necessarily the report, but all of these reports have the invoice level backup. So when you print the reports for the department managers, they'll have all of the invoices that they put to the GL account. And controllers love this one. It's the ability to run that same report, but not by vendor, but by GL account. So show me all of the invoices that went to a specific GL account. You can do that with invoice backup as well. So come budget time, it's a great tool to have for yourselves and also the department managers. And really, when it's a system like this, nobody needs to call accounting asking for copies of invoices because anybody can log in and see copies of the invoices.
Okay, this really is just a quick chart that shows you some of the advantages of Beanworks. Obviously, it's secure, online access 24/7. The app is really cool now. You can do the approvals from the app. The pre-coding by the Beanworks staff. Again, this is different from buying a piece of software and scanning everything yourself and doing all of that. A lot of work is done for you. Approvers are notified when something is there to approve, et cetera, et cetera. I think we've seen all of these. Let's talk about virtual credit card payments. If you go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about pricing and what things cost. And depending on your volume of invoices, it's either going to be $1.55 per invoice or $1.35 per invoice. Most of our clubs are at $1.35 per invoice and a $2,500 implementation fee, which is all of the setup, all of the training, everything up front. Well, here's the reality. Trying to justify this kind of expense for a typical club, I'd say the contracts are somewhere between $8,000 and $12,000 a year. Trying to justify that is going to be difficult. So how do you pay for this? How do you make this happen? Well, the way all of our clients are doing it is using a virtual credit card for AP payments. I'm going to run through this real quickly. In essence, what you've got is a credit card that is used simply as another payment option out of AP. There's no physical card you can run down to Home Depot and buy anything. But the key to it is the rebate that you receive. And the rebate, what we found is the rebate is generally in excess of, by some amount, of what it costs for the Beanworks solution. So let's talk a little bit about how this works and how you can calculate what your rebate will be. Let's assume that your club pays out $6 million in accounts payable, and you can adjust this number however it fits your club. What we find is the average AP spend, and what we're talking about is not the number of vendors, but the average AP spend that of vendors who will accept the DCC payments is about a third. So if you have $6 million in AP total, about $2 million will be accepted by vendors who will accept your credit card and who will also not charge you a fee. Just accepting their credit card is one thing, but the key to the whole thing is that they accept their credit card and they don't charge a fee. So if you multiply whatever that spend is by 1%, you get the annual revenue stream that would come back to your club. It says here no fees, but actually there's some small fees. I think CSI is $75 a month or something like that. Very minimal fees. So pretty much whatever the rebate is there's a small amount that would be fee based on that. So if you're only doing $3 million, you'd have $10,000. If you're doing $12 million, you'd have whatever that is, $40,000. We have clubs that range anywhere from, I think the lowest that we have is $700 or $800 a month, and we have a club that's receiving $3,500 a month in rebate. So it's a wide range depending on the volume that you have. But about the average that we've seen is about 1/3 of the AP spend is accepted by DCC without any charges from them, from the vendor themselves. The reason clubs don't use DCCs, we think the best count we've seen is about 450 of the 4,500 clubs that are in the U.S. That's only 10%. The main reason that's not on this list that clubs don't use it is they don't know about it or not sure how it works. But we have heard things about people being concerned about security. Reality is way safer than paper checks. Paper checks are very not secure. A lot of ways around that. You can see all the reasons why they're secure, can only be used by club personnel, can only be used to pay the vendors who participate in the program. So if somebody wants to pay your vendors for you by stealing the information, if they can even get it, they could do that for you. It can only be used through your computer network, and with every transaction, there's a unique DCC number that's generated. Once that payment is made, that number becomes invalid. Everything is PCI compliant, encrypted, and the data is not stored on your club's computer. So these are sort of large companies that do virtual credit cards that have very high levels of security. A couple of more reasons why clubs, we've heard, have not used DCCs. They are afraid not enough vendors will participate. We see anywhere from 25 to 40%. I would say the average is about 30% of the total spend. As it could be as low as 25. It takes a good year to get there. You don't come out of the box at that level, but within a year, you're pretty much at the level you're going to be at. Another pushback from clubs is they don't have time to contact all the vendors. The better VCC providers, and CSI being one of them, will make those contacts for you, at least the initial contacts. The feedback we've gotten, and by the way, we have no relationship to CSI Global B Card. We like CSI Global B Card because they have so many club clients. They get the club industry. They understand how a club works. The last one is we've had people say, that rebate's not big enough for me to care about. Okay, I can't really respond to that, but there aren't a lot of opportunities for accounting to generate revenue that I've seen. So those are the main reasons. We do mention that we do like CSI Global B Card, great Jonas interface, but good with all the other systems too. Again, the most common comment we get about CSI from our clients is, geez, I didn't realize it was going to be that easy. It's just we didn't do hardly anything, and we're just getting a rebate, and it's working well. So it's been a very positive experience for, I think they have 300 or 400 clubs. They have most of the clubs that are using virtual credit cards are using Global B Card.